Yeah, okay, the Gentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Gentry. The Jentry Podcast. The Jentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello, and welcome to the Jentry Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Mason, but more important, we have an incredible guest. We have Colorado State Rep Naquetta representing the House District 40. But she's more than that. She is a woman of first. She is the first Black immigrant to be on the Colorado State Legislature. She's also the first Liberian-American to be represented in the United States State Assembly. And I have to give a shout out to Liberia. My niece, who just turned 13 today, has Liberian roots as well. So Naquetta, thank you so much for being here. I definitely wanted to say thank you. And how are you doing?
I am doing great, Jonathan. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited to be on the Jentry Podcast.
Thank you so much. It's the first question is always a doozy, but I have to do it. What makes Colorado, I know you've lived there for over 40 years, the best place to live in America?
Wow. Colorado's exciting. I think I've seen such an evolution in Colorado. Coming here in 1980, growing up in Aurora, where I represent, Aurora has become more and more diverse. I remember being in Aurora Central High School, where I went to school, where I graduated, and there were just a few immigrants at the time. I think it was me and one other Liberian person that was here. And after that, when you look at Aurora Central High School now, it's a highly minority high school, and 1 in every 4 persons in Aurora say that they are from another country, or that they're either first generation or they're second generation. So it's a very diverse city. We have lots of different ethnic markers from Russia, whether you're European or Asian, Middle Eastern, African, we have everybody here in this melting pot. Colorado's exciting when it comes to outdoor activities, Rocky Mountains, technology. We're leading in quantum. We have a strong economy. We have been the first in many things, including marijuana, psilocybin. We are pioneers, and we have that mountaineer spirit where we can conquer anything, take every mountain. We are resilient. And I think the people of Colorado have open minds. So I really love representing Aurora, where I represent, but then also the whole state. And within about a year or so, we're going to be having our 150-year anniversary as a state. So we are one of the younger states, but we're getting up there. So
I love that pioneering spirit, the championing of immigrants. I always do my research, and one of the things that I saw when you were speaking, you mentioned that we are a country of immigrants, and that's so true. And it's beautiful to see that Colorado is continuing in that legacy. Now, I have to take it back for you. When you were a child, did you expect to be leading the state legislature? Was this always in the works, or what was it like, and how did you get to this path?
no politician. I never saw myself being a politician, honestly. I think I wanted to be an actress, a dancer, anything besides a politician. And I'm very serious about, and I did some modeling younger. I've loved fashion forever. And my immigrant parents, though, did not foster that desire for the arts like that. And I think the expectation was that you would be a lawyer, doctor, engineer, accountant, but not necessarily, acting. I mean, that was kind of like fool's play or whatever. But I really do wish that was a desire of my heart at the time. But I did do some modeling and I enjoy that. I still do a lot within the fashion space. And I run a fashion business before. Yeah, if anybody would have told me that I would be representing my state, I would not. I don't think I would have believed it. But the one thing that I can say is that I am passionate about seeing people reach their full potential and achieving their highest and best goal or worth, right? And so I think clearing opportunities and creating space for people to thrive, whether it's economics, whether it's education, whether it's small business, all of those things are important to me. And that's why I do the work that I do.
Well, you definitely put your time, money where your mouth, time where your mouth is. I know you are the president and founder of the African Chamber of Commerce. So I truly believe that you are pounding the pavement for small businesses. For our listeners, and a lot of the Gentry podcast is about learning. Could you tell us what it means to be a state representative? What does that role actually mean and do?
So a state representative role is a very important role, is a role where you represent, in my case, I have 90,000 constituents within my house district. And there are 100 total lawmakers, senators, and representatives within the state of Colorado. There's 65 representatives. I'm one of 65. There are 35 senators. So I am, and we are the majority right now. The Democrats run the Colorado State House, and they are in the majority and also in the Senate. We also have a Democratic governor. So we are there to create laws that are going to improve the lives of our constituents here in Colorado. We look at everything from water resources to trash to taxes to education, any and everything that it takes to live in Colorado is looked at by the state legislators. We pass bills. We listen to our constituents. If someone is having problems with unemployment issues, or maybe they need support for health insurance, or they don't have health insurance. If someone needs, let's say they're immigrant and they're trying to bring a family member here and they're having difficulties, we write letters for our constituents to help them to remove barriers out of their way. But we're here to serve and represent the interests of the people of Colorado. And that's through passing of bills and helping our constituents and ensuring that the laws also are passed. So when the bills are passed, we still need to monitor and ensure that people are abiding by those laws. So if there's somebody saying, well, this person is not doing right, we will make the call. And usually as a representative, you can expect that someone will call you back. So it yields a lot of power and influence, and it can be a force of good or sometimes for bad, depending on how you use that influence and power.
Love everything that you said. First and foremost, wow, 90,000 constituents. That's very impressive, and I know that's quite a balancing act to make sure that all the perspectives and interests are being served. So I tip my hat to you there. Now you also said at the end of that the power can be used for good, but also could be used for, let's just say, not so good at times. I will say, as a community member, not in Colorado, even though my wife is from Fort Collins.
Okay.
But would you say are some misconceptions about the legislative process? Have you heard any things that you're like, you know what, that's not how it actually works?
Yeah, I think that a lot of confusion comes around what is under the jurisdiction of a state representative versus a federal representative. So for instance, my congressman is Congressman Jason Crow. So a lot of people will call regarding federal matters or try to lobby me for something that's going on in Washington, D.C. And so I will need to direct them back to the federal offices, to his offices, and say, you might write our congressman there. There are things, but immigration, is a very hot budding topic right now, but there's very limited powers within the state of Colorado to handle immigration issues. Immigration issues are dealt with at the federal level, and those are issues that our congressmen and senators can deal with out of Washington. So those are some of the big things. I think just misconstruing what the powers are and who's
Totally get that. I hear that from local government through the city government to county to city to state, and now it sounds like state to federal. Sometimes it seems like people don't always know which way to go, but that's the purpose of why I do what I do, to hopefully flesh some of that out. Do you serve on any committees?
Yes,
And what
I
are
am
those
the
committees?
chairman of the House Business and Labor Committee, and also I serve on the State Affairs Committee. And State Affairs is the committee that they call the Kill Committee. And these are affairs of the state. I know, right? And we kill bills, and that's what it means. If bills come that we don't think are in the best interest of the people of Colorado, we pretty much will, deny that bill from moving forward. Um, so House Business and Labor deals with anything business related, whether that's registration, new business expansion, new business financing, making sure that businesses are transparent, making sure that businesses are complying with the rules or creating more safeguards within the laws and regulations of Colorado to protect the people of Colorado. So any and all of those things are discussed within business and under the purview of Business and Labor Committee.
I just imagine like Uma Thurman, the bill comes up and she has like a sword and just knocks it down. That sounded
No, you see, and remember, so we're 100 legislators, 65 in the House. On a committee, you might have you always have odd numbers. So you might have 9 members, you might have 13 members. So you have to, is a majority rule because it's a democratic system, right? Democracy. And so you have to convince the members of the board the worthiness of your bill. What is it going to be? How is it going to impact the people of Colorado? And how much does it cost? So those are all the things that we as a committee of reference will review before the bill then goes for second reading, which is when it's discussed on the House floor. After it's discussed on the House floor, then it's taken for a vote of the full body, which is called the Committee of the Whole of the House. Once it passes the House, it goes then into the Senate and it goes through the same processes again. It would go through a Senate committee for business. It would go, and once it passes there, then it goes to the Senate floor, and then they do a third reading, and then it's voted out. So you have to check boxes. You have to convince your colleagues. I have one vote. My vote could be the deciding vote on something if I didn't like it. And usually, if we have a disagreement, let's say we like the bill, and the bill has a lot of worthiness and some good intentions. However, there could be pieces of it that could be harmful. So I come up to you and I say, "Hey, Jonathan, I like your bill, except I think I want you to amend this part of it or to change this a little bit." If people are ready to negotiate in that space, then you don't vote against the person's bill. But let's say they are just totally, nope, we can't change anything. That's when it becomes tough. And then you have to vote no. And so if you don't get the majority of the vote to pass the bill out of a committee, it will not likely go into the committee of the whole where you can discuss it. And so that's what it is. So you have one vote, but you have to convince your colleagues that this bill is worth the salt. It's, the budget's good. It's going to have impact and it's good for the people of Colorado.
appreciate you breaking that down. I think as a community member myself, I see things come up, and sometimes like we push and we want you to do exactly what we were thinking. But that's not necessarily the case. If you are pushing a bill, you may have to give. And I do believe that compromise and the working together is what makes democracy special. So I think I appreciate you breaking it down for those of us who may not always know what is exactly going on. Now, I have one question. Now, you serve a district, the 40th district. How do you balance the latest legislative process with the priorities of your district? Can you kind of talk to the priorities of your district and how they may have go right in hand with everything in Colorado, or sometimes that they may have come to a head and you've had to either stand up or compromise, like you told us?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. There are, so we do town halls and we engage our constituents through town halls. I do a weekly or bi-weekly at least newsletter where I keep them updated on the bills that I'm carrying or the different bills that are going through the state house. As a legislator, I get 5 bills guaranteed that I will bill titles guaranteed. But then I, of course, have to go through the full process of, negotiating with my colleagues and convincing them through testimony and through, the committee hearings that this bill is worth moving forward and its impact. And so I keep my constituents engaged. I get emails sometimes from constituents saying, hey, can you look at this issue? What about that issue? Last in 2025, in the session, I ran a bill around tenants' rights. I had a constituent reach out and say, Red Bricks, it seems that no matter what, you cannot get your social security, you cannot get your security deposit back, regardless of how you keep the place clean and you turn over the place. It's always that way. So we felt that there were laws within that space that needed to be strengthened. There has been a lot of work done because there are a lot of people here who are fighting for renters' rights. Affordable housing in Colorado is a big issue. Finding a place that's affordable, holding on and keeping it sustainable. We have a lot of homelessness in community. And so I brought that bill and it was brought to my attention by constituents. So then sometimes you go and find like a housing advocate that wants to support you in that bill because it always helps to have members of the lobby or nonprofit organizations that can support your work. And if that is happening, then you can have a coalition moving forward. And you're gonna run into obstacles. No bill is easy. Most bills hard fought because people are gonna feel landlords in that instance feel, oh my God, you're taking away our rights. Now we don't get to keep security deposits. Now we have to keep records. Now we have to document to a tenant why we're keeping the deposit. We need to take pictures of the thing. Whereas before they didn't, and when the tenants confronted them, they could answer, they may not answer, and tenants don't have the money to pursue in court litigation, so they landlords could get off scot free. Now there are rules. There's timeliness. You have to respond within 30 days, 60 days. You have to have that. So all of those things make it better for people that are renting in the state. And then the landlords need to also maintain adequate records and be accountable and transparent on how they're keeping records. So yeah, so we get ideas from our constituents. We engage with our constituents. We might know of something that happened in the area that is related to everything, or it could just be a statewide issue. It could be, I have the Quincy Reservoir and the Cherry Creek Reservoir. And I know in parts of the district, there's been people that are drilling for natural gas. They found natural gas, so that's something that might be just for that community, but it could impact the whole state as well. So yeah, so that's how we do it. And that's how we keep in contact with our constituents to ensure that we are meeting their needs. And I always solicit ideas from my constituents as well.
I love that. And I think that through line that's coming through again is servant and make sure that you're listening. People will tell you, I always say, at least, people will tell you what they need if you listen. And it sounds like you definitely are doing that. Now, I did want to double click on one thing. while you were talking about getting support for bills, you brought up nonprofits and lobbyist groups. Can you kind of speak to how they support and help you when you're trying to make those compromises?
So the lobby can be your foe or your friend in the Capitol. And lobbyists are paid to represent their clients' interest. So again, there's a landlord association. And so the landlords in the previous example I gave about the bill that was passed to protect tenants' rights when it came to social security to security deposits is, you have apartment associations that will come out against your bill. They are lobbyists, they're paid to represent all of the apartments. And so they're like, we don't like your bill. So what did they do? They ran to the governor. The governor is also a stakeholder. So you would say that these nonprofit organizations and the lobby are stakeholders in the process, just like the constituents are stakeholders in the process. So you want to hear from everyone. Usually what we do then is everyone that could have interest in this bill, any industry that are intersectional or industries that are, similar, we bring them into a meeting and say, hey, this is my latest bill that I'm introducing. Please take some time to review it. We go through the bill and then we give them time to review and then submit written comments because we want to have their stuff in writing. And then we try to work through it. Sometimes they're asking you to amend too much, right? Take away too much, which then dilutes the bill to a place where it has no substance. It has its intended purpose then is mute because it cannot achieve its goal. And so you have to be able to draw the line and say, this is not what we're intending to do. The reason we're bringing this bill is because security deposits are being held by these landlords and, there is no accountability. So no, we cannot extend until 60 days. People are needing their security deposits to move on to the next apartment. And, by you doing that and keeping the security deposit past 60 days, they could be homeless. So, things like that. So that's what I mean. So the nonprofit, and then some nonprofit organizations could be like the ACLU. They could be the NAACP that could come and testify in the committee in front of, the lawmakers about the bill. Why is it impacting their members? It could be 9 to 5, which is the Working Families Party who, support working people and working families. It could be a union that is impacted. So you have so many different stakeholders within the process. And those are some of the parties.
Thank you, Reprex. You continue to tease out the nuances of the role. And when I first started, I said, wow, 90,000 constituents, that's a lot of stakeholders. But then you add the lobbies and the governor, the electeds and other electeds, and then the nonprofits. And now you have quite a collection of different stakeholders that you have to not appease, but understand their perspective to get a bill to resolution. So I'm very thankful that you've broken it down like that. Now I have to ask, upcoming, are there any initiatives or potential pieces of legislation that you're excited about that you think will make a positive impact for either your district or Colorado at large?
Yeah, interesting that you asked this question. So I'm sure most people have heard about the big, beautiful bill or the big, ugly
Yeah.
bill, like we like to call it. That bill is wreaking havoc across states, in the US. And our governor has called a special session for August 1st. So we will be going back to the Capitol. In Colorado, we are in the Capitol from roughly January 8th or so through May 7th, which is exactly 120 days. And that's what our Constitution states. The rest of our time then, after we leave the Capitol, is spent within our communities, working on bills, helping our constituents, and, checking on our stuff, running our elections and all of those things. Those are the roles that we do. So by going to back, it's cutting into our summer, but Colorado has been hard hit because of budget concerns. The impact of the big, beautiful bill in Colorado is a $1.2 billion hit to our budget. We need to find a way of backfilling our public schools, backfilling our safety nets. I'm so sorry for my cat. Anyways, backfilling our public schools, school meals, health insurance has been impacted. Our rural areas, without the help of Medicaid dollars, are going to suffer. You also have the cost of insurance for healthcare increasing because the pool is going to decrease. There's a lot of people that have been taken off of Medicaid, and so that shrinks the amount of people that they can spread the risk on. And so that means they have to increase their costs as insurance brokers and insurance agents. So we have several areas that we are concerned about, and we need to go back and address it. And then there was an AI bill that was passed a couple years back, and we needed to do some tweaking to that in 2025. That the bill that was run for the AI legislation did not pass. So there are some tweaks that we need to make in order to settle some of the issues around artificial intelligence in that bill. So yeah, so we'll be going. So yes, that will greatly impact, because what we're trying to do is to lessen the impact and the blow to Coloradans from the big beautiful bill. And just coming in from Boston, at the National Council of State Legislators, every state legislator is having that same conversation about the impact of the big beautiful bill on their states.
This is very, very interesting to me for a lot of reasons. I talk to a lot of local government officials, and unfunded mandates come up so much, like mandates that say we need to do this, but there's no money for that, and how tough that can be at times. In this situation that you're talking about, losing, if I heard you correctly, $1.2 billion.
Billion, yeah, that's going to be the cut or the impact to Colorado's budget of the what's happening through this big beautiful bill.
Now, I know if you had the answer quickly, you wouldn't be saying it quick on the podcast. You'd be running for president.
Right.
But how were anybody at the conference? Did they think of any creative ways to kind of curb the losses? Or I guess that's what you guys are kind
Yeah,
of
that's the intent of this conversation on August 1st. Get all the lawmakers in. There are bills that we're going to be running in order to lessen the impact when it comes to our kids in school, making sure that they still continue to get free meals and make sure that nobody's going hungry. Healthcare recipients, our senior citizens, and people who are on Medicaid still need healthcare access. So there's so many things that are being impacted in Colorado because of this big beautiful bill. And so the whole idea is to get us in there to see if there's money. Colorado also has limitations from something called the Taxpayers Bill of Rights, and is something that only Colorado has. Is something that's in our Constitution. And so it limits how much taxpayers' money we can keep. So let's say, for example, Colorado creates its budget and it collects more taxes than the budget. Because of Tabor, you would need to refund that money back to taxpayers. Now, taxpayers like it. They say, oh, wow, I get to get a tax refund. But that tax refund check may be $50, maybe it's $8. Let's say that money was going back and now it's helping, Aunt Sue down the street keep her healthcare insurance. Or maybe it's fixing your potholes in your street. Whatever that is, the money is always poured back into the state of Colorado to create and keep the standards of living, the services that are necessary for people to thrive here in Colorado, our healthcare system, our public schools, public works, and everything working like it should be. So so Tabor is something that we don't like, especially in times like this when things shift and you need to be able to take corrective measure. It's like, where do you get the money from? So now we start to scramble and we start to look at this. And that means then if we have to backfill $1.2 billion right now, the Colorado budget, of course, will be impacted. There's things that we're going to have to cut when we start up our session in 2026. So there's always trade-offs, and that's how that works.
And that might be the through line through this entire conversation. It's trade-offs. And I applaud you for for walking that. It almost feels like a tightrope at that time. And I can imagine. I know you're very big in business. It's like you have a dividend that you're paying your stakeholders, which are the community members. But even in lean times, you still have to pay that dividend, and you can't like not keep the money to kind of save for things like budget cuts. And I know that makes it even more difficult. Rounding out, and I feel bad, but just to talk about that tightrope a little bit more, can you talk of times that you've had to work in conjunction with local municipal government, and how has that been?
Okay. You trilled up when you talked about a time when we had to work with local government, he said.
Yes,
Okay.
like
As a state.
either Aurora, Denver,
Mhm.
one of the localities.
Sure. COVID was a perfect example of that. When I got into office in 2020, COVID had struck and the vaccines came out in early 2021. And that was a time where the African Chamber of Commerce actually, because I was the head of the chamber, I understood the need in our community for us to take the vaccines directly to the community. There was a lot of messaging around the vaccine, who could get it. You needed to have pre existing conditions and you had to be a certain age. It was very difficult to navigate. And for people who are non English speaking or immigrant populations, it's especially challenging because you really don't know who to turn to in that time and everything was shut down. So the chamber then partnered with the Colorado Department of Public Health to go out there into the communities. We then work with the church, so nonprofit or advocates, and then the city of Aurora also supported us in that in order to ensure that no one went without getting those life-saving vaccinations that were necessary for business people to go back to work, necessary for them to open their business, kids to go. They couldn't go to school because there was lockdowns and stuff, and they were doing more stuff remote. But at least they felt a little bit more safe. People were starting to die in the community, elderly people, and just even disseminating information about COVID vaccines. So all of those things, yes, we all have to work together. We don't sit on an island. The laws that we pass need to be carried out by the municipalities, the cities, the counties, and the people that make up the state of Colorado. So we work together. And the cities can be very territorial. Municipalities say we have state rights, which means that federal government cannot come and dictate on Colorado everything that they want. We can resist. Likewise, the municipalities say, yeah, you guys are doing your stuff up there on Capitol Hill, but, we decide how much zoning we want. We decide how many people get to live in our community. We decide what's the density of our communities are going to be. And so, especially when it comes to land rights and things like that, because the affordable housing laws that we're passing is to create more transit oriented development, which means that you want housing to be co-located along rail lines, trains, so that there's transportation, that you're creating more walkable communities where you can walk from point A to point B. And, there's mixed use development where you have stores on the bottom floor, apartments maybe above them, things like that. So all of that. But some communities, like let's say Boulder, Colorado, they're like, we love seeing the flat irons when we open our windows. We don't want you building sky or whatever apartments that are going to block our views. So people closely guard their autonomy and when it comes to laws being imposed upon them. So that is a very delicate balancing act. But yeah, we do try to do that for the good of Colorado.
Yeah, no, it sounds again just like you're always trying to balance, but being between the federal government, but then also municipal and local government. Don't envy you. I respect you a ton, but I don't think I envy you. Now, on an easier note, so if you had all the money in the world, all the time in the world, if there is one challenge that you could just snap your fingers and change, what would that challenge?
I wish I could solve the housing challenge here in Colorado. The cost of housing keeps skyrocketing, and land continues to become more expensive. I also have a small coal. Land becomes more expensive. Also, like getting the permits to start, like the plumbing and the water, and to bring all those things in the communities are more expensive. So we're still trying to solve that. I think housing is a big nut to crack yet in Colorado.
For sure, and everywhere. And then with what you said, that sometimes there's pushback on density or zoning, so it's even more difficult. But my final question would be: in 20 years, what are they saying about Colorado? What's the legacy, or what do community members say about where they live now?
So um, one of the areas that I've championed has been the area of homeowners association laws. And homeowners associations are associations that are created in communities to maintain the value of communities. And value meaning build equity, keep it beautiful, keep it safe. And there are great homeowners associations here in Colorado, and I'm sure in other states. However, there are places where these homeowner associations become very, very horrible to members of their own association. And it could be because a person does not agree with or questions or pushes back against things, or there might be disputes that arise, which is very often what happens is there's disputes about the covenants. For example, it might say, okay, you cannot have a green roof. You can have a black roof, a gray roof, brown roof, and you put a green roof. I mean, that might be a clear violation. But these things happen. And so the HOAs can be territorial, they can be bullies, they can be predatory, where they, try to force seniors out of their homes because now they're on fixed income and they can't pay those HOA fees. And such was the case in Colorado when I started. My background is that I run a small mortgage company. I am a mortgage broker. And so I understand housing. I've helped people create the wealth and generational wealth of owning their own homes and building that equity. So I want to see them keep it. And HOAs started to become a place where they were foreclosing on homes because of fines, because of fees, because maybe you didn't paint your fence or you left your garbage can out longer than you needed to after trash day, or maybe there's a dead tree in the yard and you didn't cut it down, or maybe you had grease stains on your driveway. It could be any little thing that is just a common thing, that everyday occurrence, but they started to fine people every day until the fines reached a certain amount, and then they were able to use that to start foreclosure proceedings. So I work passionately and diligently to change the law and to cap the amount of fines, and also that you cannot foreclose on someone because of fines. That's just a thing that happens. So ultimately, I would like to see an office. We have an HOA office that takes complaints. So if you're having issues, you can say, hey, my HOA did this to me, blah, blah, blah. And the state will log the complaint. However, they cannot help you with that. And I would like to see an office that has a little bit more expanded authority in that space that can actually help the homeowner when they call, so that if it's a covenant violation and clearly somebody's in violation of the covenants, and if it's the HOA, they have a certain amount of time to take corrective action. And if the shoe's on the other foot, likewise, they can resolve those issues. So I would like to see that happen within the next 3 years as I move through the state legislature.
I love that, and I think that's a great way to sum up our interview. Again, servant spirit that you have through and then fighting for people. That's another thing that I definitely see. People that need that support, I know they can look to you, Rep Ricks. So from everyone here at Gentry, I wanted to say thank you, Rep Ricks. This has been an incredible interview. You've teased out the nuances of state legislature in a way that was very attainable for us that don't know it as well as we probably should. So I thank you for that. Also want to thank your legislative aide Emma, who set this all up, and I appreciate you. I know fighting, being sick, traveling all the time, but making time for us. So I just wanted to really say thank you. And to all our viewers, again, this has been the Jentry Podcast. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you soon. Have a great one.